free your mind. And then it turns and runs and jumps onto the rooftop. It's so cool. Welcome back to The Home Cook. In our last episode, we worked on our knife skills, which are important to develop if you're cooking from scratch. Cooking from scratch takes time, so in this episode, I want to talk about a strategy for making meals happen, from scratch meals happen, without taking too much time in the kitchen. It might involve thinking about food prep a little bit differently than how you have been. The challenge is you want healthy food, you want food from scratch, you want it to be tasty, not super expensive in terms of ingredient cost, but also not super expensive in terms of time. How do you make that happen? Well, if you want to cook once or twice a week, which is what I actually shoot for, you could make a lot of something. You could make like 5 or 6 times what you need for that night and force yourself and your family to eat leftovers. And I do that a bit. But if you back off from making a dish completely and you leave it in kind of component form, if you make components of dishes that you can then make into different things, then you have a lot of flexibility and you're still cooking from scratch. So that's what we're going to work on today. Making components of meals and then kind of mixing and matching them into different finished dishes is a restaurant idea. That's where I learned it. Totally applies to home cooking as well. You could roast off a bunch of seasonal vegetables, that's what we're going to do today, and then just kind of keep it as roasted seasonal vegetables rather than making that then into your finished dish, like tossing it with pasta to make a pasta salad or something like that. You keep it as roasted vegetables, that's going to last in your fridge for several days, maybe up to a week. And then during that time, you could make those vegetables into different dishes. You're still cooking from scratch, right? But you're not spending so much time in the kitchen. That's the point of today's episode. You could make a sauce, like you could make a batch of pesto, put that in different things. You could roast a whole chicken and get several different meals from that. So in any given week, you could just have 1 or 2 cooking days where you're making pretty large amount of a couple of different components, parts from scratch, and then make those into different finished meals throughout the week pretty easily. So to take the example of roast veggies, I've got some examples of different finished dishes that you could do with them. Roasted veggies are my favorite thing to make. You can roast seasonal vegetables all year long through all 4 seasons. You've got variety there in the vegetables. Also, you can mix and match with like different kinds of spices. You can toss different a little bit of acids in there, like some different vinegars or some lemon juice. There's a lot. You can build a lot of variety in terms of flavor into just that component, and then from there put that component into a lot of different things. What can you put them in? You can toss them with rice and beans. That's what we're going to do today. You could have your roasted vegetables go over pizza, either a from scratch pizza or a pre-made pizza. That's also what we're going to do today. You could just have roasted vegetables be the vegetable part of an entree. You could toss it with some pasta, maybe roasted or boiled potatoes, rice. That could be either a hot dish or a cold dish, like a pasta salad or a rice salad dish with your roasted veggies. You could toss that with some canned tuna to make tuna salad. I've done that a lot. You could put the roasted vegetables in some like quesadillas or wraps, burritos or tacos kind of a thing. You could throw them in some scrambled eggs. You could have roasted vegetables as a sandwich. You could put roasted vegetables in a casserole. Do people still make casseroles? They should. Okay, let's cut and roast some vegetables. I've got some zucchini, some asparagus. I've also got some onions and some mushrooms that we're going to roast. So we're going to roast 4 different things. 2 of those things, the zucchini and the asparagus, aren't going to take very long. And 2 of these things, the onions and the mushrooms, to get them where I want them to be, are going to take a little bit longer. So I'm going to start with those. I'm going to prepare 2 different pans of roasted veggies. The onions and mushrooms are going to go on one. The zucchini and the asparagus are going to go on the other. I'm going to cut the onions and mushrooms so that they are done at about the same time. And same with the zucchini and the asparagus, so it's easy for me to take things out when they're done. So I'm going to start with the onions. Okay, I'm going to cut the onions into a half julienne cut. Again, that's from the previous video. Cut a little bit off the stem end, a little bit off the root end. Cut the onions in half, so it's really easy to find that corner, and peel the onions. Now for stuff that I'm not going to roast, I actually this time have 2 different containers. I'm going to put my compost into this bowl, but then I've got this bag. And this is a trick that a friend showed me a long time ago. If you keep a produce bag in your freezer, and see the onion skin, I'm actually not going to use, but for everything that can be turned into stock, if you keep that in a bag in your freezer until your bag fills up, then you have the makings of veggie stock. You just, when this gets full, empty it into a simmering pot of water. You can drop a bay leaf in if you want to. You don't even really need to though. You strain that out and you have veg stock. A great way to save money. And once you have veggie stock, then you can make soup really easily. So all of my kind of stockable scraps are going to go into this bag. So you go in there. So I'm just kind of sorting things now. Oops. Man down. Onions. Chop my onions. Alright, my onions into the bowl. Next are mushrooms. I'm going to use the whole mushroom. The way I usually like to cut mushrooms after I wash them is I usually just cut them in half here and then cut them into slices.